The majority of what you read is fantastically, horrifically written fiction. So we're here to talk about a film, but, you know, it's like asking a question. How are you doing? But what's underneath in the subtext is, God, I hate you. Do you know what I mean? So that's the sort of media thing.
All right. So there is something that Johnny Depp said in his press conference today that has really gone mostly unnoticed. And I think it's really fascinating because I think it was a moment of a really good window into his thinking and his feelings. And so I want to talk about that. And before I do want to acknowledge that there is an apparition, in fact, behind me. Some, as many in the comments will be noting, if I don't say something, yes, I see it. I'll be trying not to obscure it too much from time to time, but that is in fact the ghost of King Louis XV, who has come back to tell all of you media harpies and haters out there to shut the up about Johnny Depp and the beautiful movie about King Louis XV and Jean du Barry that Depp and Maiwenn and the others have made. Now, Johnny Depp said something really interesting. He was asked. You've seen the press conference. I put all of Depp's remarks up on in a video on my channel. So if you want to see the press conference and you want to see Johnny Depp's remarks in full, look at my channel. You'll see that there. But in this press conference, Johnny was asked predictably a number of questions about the aftermath of his cancellation and how he feels about being back in the spotlight and doing this big film and being at Cannes in the wake of everything that's happened to him and the criticism that he's getting in the media from some quarters and so forth, right? Not from the fans, not from regular people. I don't think from Hollywood. It's just like this minority, like Johnny Depp said, people with, mashed potatoes caked on their computer. I really wanted to get some mashed potatoes and like cake them around the camera just for fun, but then I was like, no. But it is really these people with these grubby people, with the caked on mashed potatoes on their computer. And then some of these annoying, delusional, never really lived in the real world, I guess, harpies in the media and online and so forth. So he was asked about all of this. And Depp said, the majority of what's been written about him in recent years is, quote, fantastically, horrifically written fiction. And then here's the interesting part. He says, it's like asking the question, how are you doing? But the subtext is, God, I hate you, said Depp. Those of you who watch my show, you know that I am really into psychoanalysis and I read way too much into everything, although I would say it's almost impossible to read way too much into things. But I'm constantly, when I'm looking at people talking, like doing an interview or so forth, I'm constantly trying to look beyond to just what they're saying to like how they're saying it, right? And what they are putting sort of the visceral, the underlying like emotional emphasis on. And so what I noticed is that when Johnny Depp was asked repeatedly in different ways by the reporters about this topic of like the media and his cancellation and how he's regarded by society and all that, most of the time, almost the whole time, Johnny Depp kept this sort of like emotional, ironic distance from it, which is good, which is what I would do, right? And so he was making jokes at times. He, was kind of going off on these sort of amusing tangents, which some of the media acted like were incomprehensible. No, they weren't incomprehensible. We all knew what he was saying, and for the way that he talks, I actually like the slow, thoughtful way that things roll out. And so like today, I thought it was funny when he was talking about the mashed potatoes caked on the lens of the people who are critiquing him from their computers. And he said, and they've got some species of mashed potato. I was like, oh, I like that phrasing. Anyway, here's the point, though. He kept a lot of ironic sort of distance, a lot of sort of emotional distance, kind of, he was being honest and forthright, but kind of was sort of staying at the top of the waters, so to speak, right? But there was one moment when he was talking when emotionally things sort of shifted into a different key. And it almost, and there was a sort of force that came into him and his presentation in a kind of a visceral, sort of guttural thing when he said that people ask you how you're doing, but the subtext is, God, I hate you. And the way he said that, that that is sort of the viscera, that is the sort of touching on the nerve there. And what's interesting about that to me is that it shows, and I say this with great sympathy for Depp, it shows the extent to which he, I think, is probably just now starting to process the giant crazy tornado that hit his life several years ago, and really did not let up until recently. And I mean, it's still going on, right? I mean, the entire Cannes Film Festival, for better and worse, it seems to be, revolving around him, at least so far. And I think it's a net gain for him. I think this is a tremendous triumph. I think that being at Cannes, opening Cannes, having people talking about him, being in a real, like, esteemed film, having this ballsy, I don't know what you call her, this ballsy, I don't give a French woman, Maiwenn, backing him and backing the film. And I'm going to talk more about her later. It's all great. It's all great. But of course, you're going to have these media haters and harpies, and it's not just the Cat 10 barges; it's a Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Rolling Stone and all of that, right? And they're putting out their usual crop of messages. And my point about what Johnny Depp said, he's been through a trauma. He has been through a trauma, and the trauma started with AH and that personal hell, that personal insanity, that personal, whirling vodka bottle of craziness. But then it expanded into this giant global Kafkaesque existential kind of hell. And it would be funny if it weren't so awful what he's been through over the years. And that trial, he was triumphant through that trial, but that was a crucible, I know, in and of itself. Just having to get on the witness stand and face that crazy woman. And her on the witness stand, trying to get him to look at her, I guess so he could be amused watching her try to, wring tears out of those dry eyes. Even if the entire public were on Johnny Depp's side, just the force of the media attacks that this man has taken, and the attacks from AH and from her legal team and her PR machine and all that he is taking and that he continues to take. The force of that on one person, it's hellish. I'm sure. I mean, I have a small YouTube channel, but taking some controversial stands like I do, I get just a tiny minuscule fraction of that, and it's no fun. But what Johnny Depp has endured, and then being canceled, being abandoned by, I'm sure, a number of people in the industry, friends, Warner Brothers, all of that. Not all of his friends, thank God. But having to go through that long, cold winter, that long, dark night of the soul or whatever, and to just now be emerging from it, and here he is, but he's still having to answer the same damn questions. It's like that Eminem song. It's the same damn questions. But when he's talking, just kind of staying on the surface, and then he says that, God, I hate you. And he says that's what he's been feeling, or that's what he feels now. He says when they ask you how you're doing, that really what they're thinking is, God, I hate you. That is a man who has suffered greatly and continues to suffer. And it is someone for whom even the adulation of the public and of a lot of his fellow performers, it's still, I don't think, has totally healed him from the constant barrage of hate and criticism and misunderstanding. And because of the times that we live in, people think that it's feminist to keep propping up these liars and these frauds. Meanwhile, going after women of courage, like this Maiwenn, Johnny Depp's director, woman behind the brains and the balls behind this whole project, You should see, like, there's these ridiculous articles, the Daily Beast and Variety. So this article, it says other women in the film, including Louis XV's daughters and Marie Antoinette, are largely portrayed as either nasty bitches or silly creatures who envy Jeanne, Maiwenn's character, for her style and her sway over the king. There's a real you hate me because you ain't me thing going on in the movie, which is eyebrow raising in the context of Maiwenn's lack of allyship. Now, I want you to know how retarded this is, okay? Um, what it's saying here, okay, first of all, when it says Maiwenn's lack of allyship, Maiwenn apparently is not a fan of Me Too, and she's spoken out against it in the media, which, you just can't share your honest opinions. It's like Johnny Depp was saying today in that press conference. Everyone is scared to be who they are. Well, this lady's not scared. This Maiwenn lady, she'd given an interview in the past, basically criticizing Me Too. And so what this article is saying is she is not a proper feminist ally. It says her problematic allyship, right? And therefore, the fact that she has made this movie about a woman who uses her sexuality in part to ingratiate herself with the men around her, meanwhile portraying these other women as silly or bitchy, like that's just terrible. It's not feminist. And it's another indication of a problem with Maiwenn's allyship. If you use the word, I just have to say, I'm talking to everyone out there, if you use the word allyship in a serious way, then you really should be ashamed because you're a ridiculous human being. Okay. I hope to God there is never an occasion when I will comment on someone's problematic political allyship. Okay. It's not a great ally for us, for our cause. But even as she gains status, she remains fully and happily devoted to most of the men in her life. Oh, that doesn't sound very feminist. She likes men. So I just wanted to say that when you hear Johnny Depp, when you hear him say something about the subtext, God, I hate you, that's really a tragic commentary on what he's been through and, frankly, the emotional damage that it has done. And I'm just so thankful that we have a lot of people in the public and in the Justice for Depp community and YouTube land and all of that who are continuing to get the word out for him and continuing to support him, because I just have no doubt. I have no doubt that it matters to him, especially given what he's been through and what we can see that he's been through emotionally from the things that he's said. So everybody, keep up the good work. Let's just keep going with this, keep the positive energy coming out through the Cannes Film Festival as Johnny basically has this glorious relaunch here of his career. And as always, I appreciate your support. All my links are below. Check out my channel. Tips, donations appreciated, all of that. And I'm going to be putting out more all week. Bye-bye.